Welcome to class. Today, we have a wild story for you. And I mean prehistoric, wild. We're going to be diving into this current event that's straight out of science fiction. It's like a movie, but it's real life. A genetically engineered dire wolf just attacked his handler at a recent facility in the United States. And of course, this has some big questions coming with it. Should we be bringing extinct animals back to life? Is this the future of science where humans are just messing around with nature and creating things that maybe they're not supposed to be creating? So, this lesson is all about this direwolf incident. If you look in the chat right now, you will see the link that goes to the article. And if you're watching this after the replay and it posts, I will put this same article inside the comments for you. As you know, when we do current events, we use articles to build our English vocabulary practice, learn about grammar so we could express opinions in different ways. And also in this lesson, we're going to be able to express uncertainties, things that you're not sure about. And we're going to reflect critically on the ethics in science. Are you ready? Let's go. I'm going to share the link right now to the presentation. Not share the link to the presentation. Share this. That's what we're dealing with right now.
April 12, 2025. A recent incident involving one of the genetically engineered direwolves has reignited debates over the ethics and risks of de-extinction science. On Friday, a reported attack by one of Colossal Bioscience's genetically modified wolf pups left a wildlife handler injured during a routine feeding session at the company's undisclosed northern U.S. facility. The handler, whose
All right, just so you know, it was a routine feeding session. Basically, this pup should know exactly what to do and what not to do in this situation because it was already a routine. And we see that for whatever reason, this genetically modified puppy was not going along with the routine.
injuries are not life-threatening, was transported to a nearby hospital for treatment. The wolf involved in the attack was identified as Romulus, one of 3 pups unveiled by Colossal earlier this week as part of their groundbreaking effort to resurrect the extinct direwolf species. While the company claims the animals are functional replicas of Enochian dirus, critics argue that they are merely grey wolves with genetic modifications designed to mimic some traits of their prehistoric counterparts. Colossal Bioscience is
All right, so we're basically not looking at a natural animal in this story. The wolf's name, Romulus, is not a natural born wolf, as you may know. This was created in a lab. He was created in a lab, I should say. You could say it as well. And different strands of DNA taken from who knows where were incorporated into this particular animal, this dire wolf. So it's a mix of different genetics and different breeds, including the gray wolf. And we see that this puppy kind of wanted to take things into his own hands this day.
announced the birth of Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi on April 7th, touting them as the first successful example of de-extinction. Using ancient DNA extracted from fossils and advanced gene editing techniques, scientists modified grey wolf embryos to incorporate 20 genes associated with dire wolves. The pups exhibit physical traits such as larger size and thicker coats, but remain genetically closer to grey wolves than true dire wolves. While Colossal has hailed the project as a scientific milestone, experts have raised concerns about its implications. Nick Rawlance, a paleogenetics expert from New Zealand, criticized the effort as genetic mimicry rather than true de-extinction. These animals are not dire wolves, he stated earlier this week. They are modified grey wolves with some superficial similarities. Friday's attack has intensified scrutiny on Colossal's practices and the broader risks associated with reviving extinct species. The company has housed the pups on a private 2,000-acre site under strict supervision, but questions remain about whether these animals could pose a threat if released into the wild or if containment protocols fail. Environmentalists have also
All right. So notice the two concerns there. One, if the scientists decide that, hey, these wolves, act pretty much like natural wolves, let's throw them into the wild so they can reproduce. What are the consequences of that happening? Or this containment facility where the animals are contained, and I do believe we're going to go over that word containment later. What happens if it fails or if there's a breach in the containment? Then now you have these wolves who were not ready to be released into the wild. They're going to end up in the wild anyway because they were able to break through what was keeping them in.
expressed concerns about introducing such predators into ecosystems that have evolved without them for thousands of years. Dire wolves were apex predators during the Ice Age, preying on large mammals such as bison and horses. However, modern ecosystems may not support such large carnivores, potentially leading to conflicts with existing wildlife and humans. The incident has also reignited ethical debates surrounding de-extinction science. Critics argue that resources spent on reviving extinct species could be better allocated toward conserving endangered species currently at risk of extinction. Others question whether humans should interfere with nature in such profound ways.
All right, should we be interrupting nature's cycle? That is an answer I'd love to hear if you could put that into the comments. But, we do talk a little bit about the political side, the financial side, and the ethical side of these articles. But again, this is an English lesson, not necessarily an ethics lesson. So we're going to get into some good old fashioned English. In this case, we're going to learn some vocabulary words. All right. So here's some important vocabulary words that you're going to find in the article. And yeah, what have they done? What have they done, these people? Can't even get to our cars. I want you to really understand these words, not just their definitions, but how they work in a sentence. So we're going to go through each one together, okay? Our first word is genetically engineered. And this means something that has been changed using science and DNA, usually in a lab. Think about crops that are engineered to grow faster or bigger, and animals that are changed to look different. So it means altered using DNA technology. Our next word is de-extinction. De-extinction. And it's a pretty new word. It means bringing something that's extinct or gone forever back to life. And we've seen scientists do that with the mammoth, the dodo, or in this case, the dire wolf. So de-extinction, it's a noun, bringing extinction or bringing extinct species back to life. Mimicry, mimicry. So that's a noun. It means imitation or copying the appearance of something. And we have a lot of animals in nature who do this naturally. For example, the octopus, the chameleon, A lot of stick bugs. They're able to imitate their surroundings or copy their surroundings in order to hide from predators. So it's not a real thing, but it looks and acts just like it. And as mentioned while the article was playing, our word containment here is a noun, containment, and that's keeping something under control in one place. So in this story, we're talking about keeping genetically modified wolves inside of a safe area. So this noun is a control or restriction of movement. As you can see, that thin fence holding that wolf back. Very thin fence. And we have ethics. So these are moral rules, right versus wrong. Should we do something just because we can do it? Or should we think about the consequences or implications of our actions before performing an action? All right, so those are our 5 words. As you know, we have an activity for it. I want you to match the words to their definitions or their meanings. And then we're going to take it a step further after this multiple choice. I will give you a few moments to enter your response. You want to look at the word, it has a number next to it. So the way you answer is you could throw the number into the comments or into the chat and then attach the correct letter of the word next to the number. All right, I'm going to come in and check on you, see if you need more time. Again, you have genetically modified, you have mimicry, containment, de-extinction, and ethics. Hopefully, I'm loud enough for you. All right, let's keep on going. Let's do some parts of speech practice. We have the word in the article, attack. The part of speech for attack is a noun, but it can also be a verb. By the way, when you're done with that vocabulary, you could have paused the video. I forgot to mention that. You can pause the video before we get into this part. We are jumping into a new activity. So after you give me the correct number and letter for each word and definition, let me go back. Feel free to take these sentences, these definitions and words, and write your own sentences for at least 3 of the words, right? So you could take probably mimicry, containment, and ethics, and then you want to create your own sentence. Don't just copy the example from the article. Make it yours, okay? For example, you could say, I think genetically engineered animals could help fight diseases. And an example for containment, you can say containment is important when you have wild animals, or in this case for the scientists, wild ideas. So think personally and be creative and just have fun with it, okay? So you were matching definitions and also writing sentences. All right, so we just talked about the word attack, and it could be a noun or a verb. Engineered is a verb in the past. That's why the ed is attached to it. And the whole purpose of understanding parts of speech is so that you understand that the words just don't mean things. They're not only definitions. Each word, when it's in a sentence collaboratively with other words, they act in different ways. Let's continue with the list. Replica, it is a noun. Superficial, an adjective, and adjectives describe nouns. So you can say superficial replica or superficial wolf. because a wolf would be a noun, or a wolf is a noun, I should say. And a lot of these words in the parts of speech, they can be flipped around. For example, we just talked about attack. Attack could be a noun, but depending on the sentence, it could also be a verb. So try to take some of these words and then flip them, flip their part of speech inside of your sentence. And that's how you would practice playing around with the words and getting a command of the English language. We also have revive, and revive is a verb. So go ahead and pick two of these and use them in a sentence and try to change their parts of speech in the sentence that you create. So let's say you pick engineered. In the article, it's a verb, right? In the past participle, in the past tense. The wolves were genetically engineered, but you can flip it into a noun just like this. The engineer was proud of her creation. So I changed engineered, which is a verb in the article, into a noun by removing the ed and putting an article, the, in front of it. The engineer. Now that word becomes a noun, a person, place, or thing. Here's another example. Let's say the word attack. We know that it can be a noun. The wolf attack was scary. The wolf attack was scary. That's a noun. A wolf attack is a thing. But I can take that same word and turn it into a verb. The wolves attacked quickly. The wolves attacked, I'm adding ed, quickly. So an activity like this helps you become more flexible with English. You're able to see how language is used in different ways. You're able to see the multiple layers that each word comes with when it comes to definition and when and how words are used. All right, try to have fun with that activity too. Again, you're picking two of those and you're going to write them in a sentence with a different part of speech, just like I did with engineer and engineered. So our grammar focus for today, modal verbs, and modal verbs are for speculation. So you're going to see a lot of possibility terms from this article. So this story is really full of uncertainty. There's a lot unknown about what happened. And English has special verbs. Those are called modal verbs. They have special verbs for that situation. So we use them when we don't know something for sure, but we have an opinion on it. Here's some examples from the article. This might be dangerous, or this could be dangerous. It's a possibility. Might have been preventable. This might have been preventable. They could escape. The wolves could escape. People should be more careful. They should be more careful. Should they be doing this? It must be expensive. It must be expensive. I don't know exactly how much it costs, but it's probably very expensive having acres of land and being able to contain these animals and experiment on them and even just create them in general. It must be expensive. So I want you to rewrite four statements from the article that use the modals. So the keywords you're looking for here are might, should, must, or could. Those are key words that let you know these are modal verbs for speculation. So look for might, should, must, or could. Then write a modal question of your own or a modal sentence of your own. Here's a sample transformation. So the original is the wolves are dangerous. The modal, the wolves might be dangerous. So notice how in the original we're saying exactly what the wolves are. We are stating a fact. The wolves are dangerous. And we know that because of the story. The incident that happened proves or is proof that the wolves are dangerous. But if I want to change that into a speculation with the modal, I will say the wolves might be dangerous, as if I didn't know. So your goal is not just to change the grammar. Think about how it changes the tone of the story or of your opinion. Notice it becomes more polite when I say the wolves might be dangerous. Like they might be, it's a little more polite. It's adding uncertainty, is being more suggestive. This is how you express opinions in English without sounding too aggressive, without offending people. Let's get into my favorite part of this lesson. Let me check on you real quick though. Everyone seems to be doing good. All right, no eager questions yet. But we're going to get into my favorite part, which is the 5 W's. So we have our words, our 5 W words, inquiry words, which are who, what, when, where, why. And in my opinion, you can't have a news based lesson without asking the classic 5 W's questions. All right. They really help us break down what's going on. So here's our who question. Who was injured and by whom? Who was injured and by whom? Our excerpt tells us the answer. On Friday, a reported attack by one of Colossal Biosciences' genetically modified wolf pups left a wildlife handler injured during a routine feeding session. So, who was injured? A wildlife handler was injured. A wildlife handler. Let's go to our next question. What? What is Colossal Biosciences trying to do? Now, remember, these are my examples, my example questions. When you perform your activity, I'm just using it to model and show you. But when you use your activity time, you're taking just the who, what, when, where, and why, and you're creating your own questions, your own questions. And you could use the excerpt from this article to help you form those questions. But to get good at this, you're not just copying my questions. So, what is Colossal Biosciences trying to do? What are they trying to do? From the excerpt, it states Colossal Biosciences announced the birth of Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi as part of their groundbreaking effort. So, they had an effort to do something. The groundbreaking effort to resurrect the extinct dire wolf species. So here you have a wolf species. They have been extinct for quite a long time, meaning they were not producing or reproducing any offspring in nature for quite some time. They were labeled extinct, animals you will never see again. And this bioscience group named Colossal, they brought it back to life. And that's the word resurrect right here. They brought it back to life using science. Let's look at our when. When did the wolf pups get announced? The excerpt tells us that Colossal Biosciences announced the birth of these siblings, these puppies, on April 7th. So we have an exact date of when this occurrence happened. Where is the facility located? Where is this place located? Our excerpt tells us the handler was injured during a routine feeding session. Here's where the session happens. The word at, the preposition at, tells us it was at the company's undisclosed northern US facility. This is a big word right here, undisclosed. Un is our prefix. And if you're familiar with English, and maybe I'll do a whole lesson on prefixes, but this word un, you probably use it a lot in your everyday conversations, or you probably hear it a lot in your everyday media watching or Netflix watching, YouTube watching. This word un means not. So, undisclosed, northern US facility. It is not disclosed. It is not being told exactly where it is. In other words, it is a secret facility. In our last 5W question, the most important one that ties everything together is why. So, why are people concerned about this project? Our excerpt tells us environmentalists have also expressed concerns about introducing such predators into ecosystems that have evolved without them for thousands of years. Again, this entire article can be found currently in the chat. After this posts, you will find it in the comments. But to create your own 5W questions and to participate in this activity, you don't need to read this whole article because you can use the excerpts that are being displayed right here. All right, so let's see. All right, so we have a comprehension activity based on the 5Ws that we did. You could just read the question and you're choosing A, B, C, or D. Who was injured during the incident? Is it A, a scientist from New Zealand, B, a visitor at the Colossal facility, C, a wildlife handler during feeding, or D, one of the genetically engineered wolves? Who was injured? What is the main goal of Colossal Biosciences? Is it A, to protect endangered species, B, to create larger wolves for zoos, C, to study wolves from other countries, or D, to bring back an extinct species? Here's another comprehension question. When did the company announce the birth of the wolf pups? Again, you can go back and reread these excerpts, or you can just use the link to click to the article to help you answer these questions. When did the company announce the birth of the wolf pups? Is it A, April 1st, B, April 7th, C, the 11th, or D, April 12th? Some of these questions are easier than others. Where did the wolf attack happen? Is it A, in a southern US zoo? Very tricky question here. Some people will hop right onto it because they know animals are in zoos. But if you clearly read the article with all of us just now and then you break everything down, you will see that may not be the correct answer. Is it B, in Canada? C, at a private lab in the northern US? Or D, in a national park? Remember the word undisclosed that we just talked about? It can help you with this question. And why are some people worried about the Direwolf project? So notice these questions are all coming from the 5 Ws, but it's multiple choice, so it's giving you an opportunity to really dive into understanding what we just read. Why are some people worried about the Direwolf project? Is it A, the wolves might be too small? B, there are not enough scientists involved? C, they might harm modern ecosystems? Or D, the wolves are not actually extinct? Please don't choose that last one. All right, before we get into our timeline, which is our next activity, I just want to come in here and check on you and see if you're doing good. Remember, when it comes to the 5 Ws, you want to answer in full sentences. For example, if I say who was injured, you don't want to just say the handler. Instead, you want to say the person injured was a wildlife handler working with the dire wolves. Using those complete sentences is extra practice, not only with parts of speech, but also being able to sound more fluent and to sound like you know what you're talking about pretty much. And you do know what you're talking about, but sometimes it's hard for you to say it in English. I understand that. But this is why we practice using complete sentences. So the more you practice, the better you get. And here's a bonus question before we get into the timeline. What do you think the main idea of the article is? What do you think the main idea is? Can you say it in one sentence? If you're able to say that in one sentence, it helps you practice summarizing, which is a huge academic writing task and is very helpful in everyday conversations. Okay. So remember, use complete sentences and try to summarize the entire article in one sentence. All right, so let's look at this timeline. You have some examples of basically things that happened in order. A timeline is a sequence of events. So on April 7th, Colossal announces the birth of Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi. That happened April 7th. You can imagine one of these flag points or flag posts being the first event. And then we're going to go into the next event. It happened on April 11th. One of those pups, Romulus, attacked his handler during the feeding session. You know, like, sit, sit, good boy. Here's a treat. Sit, sit, good boy. Here's a treat. Sit, sit. Rah, ah. I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh at you, handler, but you know, you chose this job to work with wolves. You know, what did you expect could happen? But hopefully you're doing better. I do want you to heal. I do want you to feel better. It's just pretty scary. It's a scary situation. That was a nervous laughter, okay? I'm feeling nervous for your job. And April 12th, the third flagpole here, news breaks and ethical debates begin. So, what do you think would happen next? What would that fourth flagpole be? All right, so some more reading comprehension. Let's look at these two excerpts. The wolf involved in the attack was identified as Romulus, one of three pups unveiled by Colossal earlier this week. And we have another real quote from the article. Experts argue the animals are modified gray wolves with superficial similarities. This is clearly a tough lesson for any entering or emerging L. If you are transitioning, you can find some support, of course, within these activities and with the images and the read aloud that we did. So you are able to at least complete most of these independently. If you work with a partner, You probably have a better chance of getting everything done. But really expanding and commanding students, this is where you can shine. This is where you can really go over that hump of getting a grasp or command of the English language. So, activities just like this one here, this reading comprehension activity, being able to answer these questions in your own words, analyzing these lines, and being able to get real insight into what's happening. So, question number one: what kind of animal attacked the handler? What kind of animal attacked the handler? Read that first excerpt again and try to put the words inside the excerpt into your own words. Question number two: what are critics saying about the animals? And the critics in this case for the excerpt would be experts. That's experts inside the excerpt. Very tricky play on words there. But they are the critics. And what are they saying? What are they arguing? And a little bonus question: how was Colossal even creating these wolves? The article does tell us the process that the scientists are going through to create the wolves. So, someone's saying they want another one. You want another comprehension question? The three I just gave you were not enough? All right. Let me see. What are the safety concerns? You could probably talk about that. What are the safety concerns? So remember, you want to find an excerpt or piece of the article to help you answer these questions. That way, when you give a response, it is based on fact. All right, let me check on you real quick. Again, sorry if I'm going too fast. Use that pause button to your advantage, or you can actually use the settings button and just slow the speed or slow the pace of all of these activities down. All right, I did ask you to create the timeline already. When you create your timeline, by the way, use these time connectors. You have words like then, after that, next, finally. Using words like that shows the order or the sequence of events that you're discussing. I gave you the first three. Feel free to create your own three, but I wanted you to add the next steps, which is four, step five, and step six. All right, let's reflect a little bit on what happened. We're going to talk about theme, and the theme is the ethics and dangers of playing with nature. So, do you think it's a good idea to bring back animals that are extinct? Why or why not? Think about these two questions when you answer. What happens when we bring back the past? In general, when you bring something back from the past, I know it depends on if it was a good situation or bad situation, or positive experience and negative experience. I understand that. But in general, what happens when you bring back the past? And should science be moving forward if it means new risks? For example, this trainer or handler who was injured, this would be a good question for that person. Are you going to continue working with wolves that are genetically modified? Are you going to continue at this facility? It depends if maybe you feel it was your fault that you got injured, or maybe if it was just too risky and you still decided to do it anyway. Maybe you had bills to pay. Who knows, right? But this would be a good question for you. And as a learner, someone who just read this article, as an English learner, after reading this article, these are deep thought questions, all right? Questions that help you think deeply. Ethical questions. Remember our word ethics. So try to use complete sentences no matter what the question is. And of course, use your transition words that we just learned about. There's another video that I created, how to express your opinion. If you ever catch that one, you have words like first of all, before starting your answer or before stating your response. You can use the transition word first of all, the transitional phrase, I should say. You can use the transitional phrase, in my opinion. You can use the transitional word, however. All right. So, this is a chance to show what you understand and also a chance to express yourself. All right. Of course, feel free to any type of writing assignment that I gave you, feel free to use those connectors to show the order of events. And this is also a helpful opportunity to storytell. Practicing storytelling is a great way to practice your English. So you have the academic side where you're writing your response and trying to answer. And you also have the writing that you can now practice and take into your daily conversations to tell a story. So, a friend maybe who has not read this article, you'll be able to tell them about the birth of Romulus, Remus, and Kalishi. You'll be able to tell them that it happened on April 7th. You can talk about the ethical debates explored in the media after this happened. So you can use words like then, next, after that, and finally, to take those sentences from your timeline and to say it in a conversation with a friend or family member who has not read this. And that's practicing not only your comprehension, what you understand from the article, but it's also practicing, like I said, storytelling. So you can say, first, the company revealed the birth of these three genetically modified puppies. Next, there was a feeding session and one of the wolves attacked the handler, right? So you're telling a story based off information that you learned. Keep it factual, but smooth. All right. So again, we're getting deeper into the theme of ethics here. So it's a story about a wolf attack. We know that. But it's really about human choices, people deciding whether or not they want to bring back extinct animals. And just because we can do something, should we? Are we helping nature or are we playing God? Right? So, write a short paragraph here. Would you support a law that limits or bans de extinction? Why or why not? Would you support a law that bans scientists from creating wolves like Romulus, Remus, and Kalishi? Try to use at least three new vocabulary words that we learned from earlier in the lesson. Put those into your short paragraph, all right? And I'm going to encourage you to start conversations so you can practice your speaking. This is where your voice matters the most, all right? There's no right answer. We're just talking about opinions here. So, do you support the science moving forward, or are you worried about safety and ethics? Use a voice recorder, use your phone. I want you to write that paragraph and then speak your response. When you read your response, try to speak it as if you're having a conversation, not just reading to someone. That's why I said speak your response. I know you're reading your own words, but when you read it aloud and you're recording yourself, try to have a conversation instead of just reading it. And then don't forget your linking words to help you organize your thoughts. I believe, in my opinion, one reason is, and at the end of your paragraph, you can say, in conclusion, in conclusion, in conclusion. All right. So this is real life English. You're catching my mistakes. I'm catching yours. We're helping each other learn. So stay thoughtful, organized, and of course, continue being passionate about learning English and using different types of current events to answer your questions. We're going to wrap it up here. Let's review a few of the things that we learned today. We had some new English words from a very strange headline, very scary thumbnail as well. We learned how to speculate using modal verbs. We built a timeline. We summarized ideas. We used parts of the question in our answer. We discussed ethics and the science in English. And we practiced English using real thinking. Who wants some more work? Raise your hand. Do you want another assignment? I can give you one more. I know this is a lot already. Yeah, I know, Golshana, you want another one. I got you. And Shafa, here you go. Look up another science or technology related story and try to answer it with the 5 W's. All right, this is going to keep your reading and writing skills sharp when I'm out here creating another lesson for you. If you don't see me showing up, it's because I'm working on something new, something else to help you get better. So you can also look up your own articles, and then these same skills that we practiced in this lesson, you can create your own inside of this new article. And feel free to send me that article so I can read it as well. Right? Remember, you're not just learning English, you're learning how to think, you're learning how to reflect, and you're learning how to express big ideas in this new language. You got this, all right? Keep on going, keep on learning, and I'll see you next lesson.